Welcome to the Be Well podcast. Here we share real stories, have honest conversations, and offer practical wisdom to help moms prepare for pregnancy, birth, postpartum, and beyond. I'm your host, Candace Jackson. I'm a birth and postpartum doula, childbirth educator, wife, and mama to two. I'm excited to finally have the opportunity to sit down with Mercedes Wells. Mercedes' video went completely viral of her birth story. During her birth, we saw snippets of what was happening, of her being dismissed from the hospital, ultimately delivering her baby in her husband's truck a few minutes after being discharged from the hospital. Mercedes, I'm so glad to have you here. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about who you are beyond your viral story?
Thank you so much, Candace, for having me. So, a little more about me is I'm a mother of seven. We are a blended family. Our oldest son is 22. Our oldest daughter is 19. And we have a 16-year-old, a 12-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 2-year-old, and then Alina, the newborn.
All right. Y'all have a lot. Y'all have a handful of children. So let's talk a little bit more about your pregnancy. So can you talk about, just how your pregnancy was? Was it a healthy pregnancy with Alina?
It was a very healthy pregnancy, my fourth pregnancy, and well, no, my fifth pregnancy, and my fourth baby. She was healthy all the way through. I never had any problems going to my prenatal visits. It was always good reports. And she came 38 weeks. At 38 weeks, yeah.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about prenatal care. Was there any time during, just you seeing your obstetrician that you felt dismissed, unheard about anything during that pregnancy?
No, my obstetrician didn't make me feel that way. It was my
Okay.
first encounter when I was in labor with Alina. Excuse me, when I was in labor with Alina, that was my first encounter having, medical care provider dismiss me. So it was
Okay.
a shock at the same time.
I can imagine. So let's go back to you being in labor. So the first starts of labor. So can we talk about, how was that? What were some of the signs or indications that you had that you were in labor?
So we were on a work trip from coming from like far Indiana towards Crown Point area. And so I felt the contractions literally all day from the morning time. So I had planned to go later in the day. I'm like, okay. My husband didn't want to leave me at home. I rode with him because he refused to leave me home because he knew that it was getting close, and I knew that it was getting close too. I had I had been having pains all that night, also all that morning, and my contractions got down to 30 minutes. And I told my husband, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
I told my husband that is if it get down to 15 minutes and we're still on the road, we have to stop at the nearest hospital. So that was Franciscan. I called them maybe 20 something minutes ahead, let them know that I was on my way there. Even talking to them on the phone, they seemed, like, oh, okay, we'll see you. And it wasn't like what I would usually hear, like, okay, we'll get you up as soon as you get here, like kind of like a urgency in their
Right.
voice we usually would hear. And it wasn't like that. So when I got there, the urgency still, I'd never seen any urgency, It wasn't like, hi, how are you doing? It was just like, okay, how close are your contractions? It was like right to business. It wasn't much of a greeting. Um, when I was laboring in Franciscan for a good 6 hours before I was discharged, but going in there, my nurse came in right away and said, if you're not contracted past 3 centimeters, if you're not dilated past 3 centimeters, then we're going to have to discharge you. So that was like her first, you know, coming in the room, didn't write her name down. She just said that. And then she gave me a drug test.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Okay. So this is the stuff we don't see, as part of the story. We don't hear all of this that kind of unfolded. So I'm so happy that you get the opportunity to tell the little details that contribute to the ultimate story of what happened. So let's talk a little bit more about during that time they were unfriendly with you, and they checked you and said that you were 3 centimeters. What were you feeling at that moment when they told you that you were 3 centimeters? And you kind of already in your mind, because you're not new to this, you're not a first time mom, so you know instinctively how far along you were. So let's talk about your mind state and some of the things that you and your husband were kind of talking about during that time, and y'all's mind state during that time as well.
Well, I was kind of like not really feeding into her energy, even though I suspected something was off with her. I kind of ignored everything. When she said the first time she said she was gonna let me go, like that I would be. I'm trying to think of the exact words she said. She said that when if you're not dilated past 3 centimeters, then you can go, right? So I'm like, okay, go. So I'm thinking off, you know, in the beginning, I'm like, okay, I can go to labor and delivery room. I wasn't thinking I can go home because I knew I wasn't going home before I had the baby. I knew I was about to have the baby. So I'm not even feeding into what she's saying. I'm just like, okay, I can go. And then when she walked out the room after checking me, my husband was like, babe, she's saying that you could go home if you're not past 3 centimeters. I'm like, no, she's not. She said I could go to the labor and delivery. I mean, labor and delivery room.
Right.
And he's like, and then my mom said, no, honey, she meant that she's gonna discharge you. I'm like, no, mama, she can't be saying that. I'm like, y'all gonna see. When she come back, y'all see. I was in denial at first, and they were trying to persuade me to know that that's what she was saying. She was saying she was gonna discharge you home. And I'm like, can't be. I'm about to have the baby, so it can't. That's not what she meant.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. At that point, she tells you, if you're not past the 3, then she's going to discharge you home. And so now we see. Let's talk about a little bit of the video that we see. So we see them putting you in a wheelchair and wheeling you to the exit of the hospital. So during that time, you're having contractions. Your labor is still progressing, and you not being a first time mom, you know that your body is getting to the point of, I'm about to deliver this baby. What was going through your mind during that time?
I'm gonna backtrack just a little bit.
Okay.
So when we were still in the room and they were telling me, you're gonna be discharged. When she came back in the room, we kind of like already had our reservations about her. So we began to ask questions like, hey, do you have kids? Are you married? How old are you? We began to ask her questions. And because we just wanted to kind of like understand this person better, like what's really going on here and who are you? And she told us, her and her husband were trying to have kids and she was 25. We asked how long she'd been a nurse and she said only about 2 years. She put the monitors on me and she seen that my contractions was about 9 to 8 minutes apart at that point, and then she left the room. My mom helped me to the bathroom, and my water broke. So when she came back, we let her know, like, hey, the water broke, just so you know. And she was like, okay, walk the halls. So she knew that part, but that's not something that she put in her notes. So that was eventually when we found that out, that was like really crazy to us that she didn't put that in her notes. So we walked the halls, we came back. The last time she checked me, she said I was still 3 centimeters and that I would be discharged um, per the doctor's request. And I told her, I'm like, well, I never seen the doctor, and why would she discharge me? And she said, because when you're not past 3 centimeters, you have to be discharged. And then if you progress, then you can come back. I told her, I can't leave. I don't feel comfortable leaving. So why would you send me home when I'm afraid to go home. I don't feel comfortable. And she's like, well, you can always come back. And the doctor, I'm like, so I have to leave. Like, even though you're discharging me, the doctor says I have to leave. I have to leave. Like, that's policy. And she's like, yeah, that's policy. So I was really hurt, upset. My husband said, come on, let's just go because they don't want us here. I'm like, you're right. And I started getting ready. He went out and said, "Hey, can I at least get a wheelchair for my wife?" So they brought the wheelchair to the nurse's station. So he went and came back and got me out the room. Him and my mom walked me because I could barely walk at this point. They walked me to the nurse's station, and I was still reluctant to leave. So I mean, I was having a contraction at that moment. I let out a loud cry. I even, cried out to the nurse's station. All the nurses were sitting there looking at me, watching me in pain. And when I sat down, the nurse that was helping wheel me down, she just started moving me. Like they wanted me out so quickly and they didn't hesitate. Like two nurses that I never had seen began to wheel me down. And when we got down to the exit at the when we got to at the elevator, when we got down to the first floor, there was a security guard waiting on us as if we did something wrong. And I'm sitting here in agony and pain. And my husband, everyone's peaceful. It was a peaceful, exit. No one got said anything to her, to either of the nurses. And one of the nurses touched the top of my stomach and she said, your uterus is still soft, so you're not in active labor. And that's when you see me put my head on my hand on my head, like, I can't believe this lady just said that, and then another contraction came, and you see me, laboring in the waiting area, waiting on my husband to get the truck. She actually tried to push me outside while he was walking to the truck before. So it's freezing cold. This is November, freezing cold outside. She expects me to sit outside and wait on him to pull up the truck. I'm like, please, why are you pushing me so fast? Can you please take me back in, and so I could wait
Right.
for my husband? And so she took me back in, and my mom was recording all that time since we got off the elevator because she was so surprised at the treatment I was getting from these people. And they supposed to care. So there was no compassion the entire time.
Exactly. No compassion at all. Wow, so many things that went wrong during that time. And I'm sorry all of that happened to you. Take us into the truck with you. What were some of the things that happened? What were some of the realizations that you had while you were in the truck?
Yeah, so when I got in the truck, we pulled off. And before we even got through the exit and got on the expressway, I'm breathing because the pain is hitting me back to back. And then I'm just like, minutes in, I'm like, babe, I gotta push. And I'm just calling out to God, honestly, the whole time, calling out to God. And I'm like, help me pull my pants down. And he, with one hand, because he has one hand on the wheel, and he's with one hand, he's, pulling my pants down. I'm pulling the other side down. And once he gets my pants down, I'm pushing. It was like right instantaneously. So he calls 911 right away and he's like, what am I supposed to do? I see my baby's head. What do I do? And they're like, pull over. And that was it. And then he's like, what else do I do? Because he don't know how to deliver a baby. So he's asking them, what else do I do? They're like, blank, nothing. Couldn't tell him anything. So he just does what he just feel he should. And he kind of like pull as I push. And I pushed a few times and Alina was here. But I mean, it was so fast that if they would have let me stay in that hospital for 15 to 20 or maybe 30 minutes, it would have all been. It was just like if you guys would have just had a little compassion for a little bit longer or just had any type of care as a human to see me in pain like that and roll me out of a hospital while I'm still in distress is beyond me. I've never seen it before. I didn't think that people did this.
When you got into your husband's truck, y'all were headed to the nearest hospital. How far was the nearest hospital from Crown Point?
The hospital we felt safe going to is community hospital, and that was 30 minutes away. So after she was born, it was like a 20 something minute drive, like 25-minute drive.
Okay.
Yeah.
So after you had Alina on your chest, she had just been delivered in the truck. What were your thoughts then after you had her? Was it kind of like a surreal out of body experience, or were you kind of panicky, fearful? What were your thoughts after that?
It was like I was in a dream, but I did feel a sense of fear, confusion, and relief all at the same time. Because the baby was out and I was able to breathe and got through that pain. of delivering her. My husband told me, warm her up. He grabbed the blanket out the back seat right away, put it on top of us, and he said, keep her warm, rub her up, make sure she's, breathing. And then as I'm doing that, she began to cry. So we both had a sense of relief because we knew that she was alive and breathing.
That's
Um, but it was still that fear of, okay, this is an unsterile environment. Let's make sure I'm not touching anything and touching her too. So I just kind of just sat there and waited until we got to
mm,
the hospital. Well,
okay.
he was on the phone with 911 this whole time.
Okay, so let's talk about the next hospital. So, what type of care did you receive there, and what were some of the things that they did?
It was a welcoming. Okay, when first of all, he had told the 911 emergency person, "Hey, let them know I'm coming." So they were ready. It was like 10 people outside with blankets and everything just waiting on us. And they immediately started caring for me and the baby. They got us out the truck, put us on the a bed and rolled us up. Um, Usual stuff that you would do, if you're in the hospital giving birth. They helped him cut the cord. They made sure I had an IV. They made sure the baby was fine. They cleaned her up and all that stuff that they would normally do. So it was just, they really, really stepped up and made us feel welcomed and loved. I really appreciated that hospital at the time.
Oh, that's a blessing. I'm glad that was your experience, especially after such having such a traumatic experience at Crown Point Hospital. So let's talk about after your hospitalization. You are released postpartum from the hospital, and you get home. What was that experience like?
So I was worried about Alina when we got home because it was a traumatic experience we had both just been through. And I didn't know that she would have any like after effects of that. So it was touch and go for me because I'm like, okay, I'm just watching her, I'm watching her sleep. Um, and then I ended up having a setback where I was experiencing pain that I couldn't even fathom. I couldn't move out of the bed. The ambulance had to come and get me out of the bed because of the amount of pain I was in. And I was rushed to the hospital. It was pretty much trauma from the way I was sitting up giving birth in the truck. So that's why the pain was so bad, they told me. They did some tests and everything and things checked out at the moment. So it was fine. And they just wanted to monitor me overnight to see if I was to experience any of that pain again. And I was able to manage the pain with some pain meds and everything. So when I got home days later, I noticed watching Galena sleeping that she started having like spasms, which I would, assume is a seizure the way she was shaking and everything. So it was something I never seen in any of my other children. So I was very concerned and afraid, like, oh my gosh, like what's going on? So of course we took her to the hospital to get it checked out.
After she got to the hospital and was checked out, what exactly was going on with her? Was it just a result of a traumatic birth, or was it something a little bit more serious underlying that was going on?
So when we got to the hospital with Alina, we went to Lurie's, one of the best hospitals in Chicago, children hospitals in Chicago. We got there and they did monitor her brain waves, and they were trying to catch an episode of the seizures that I seen her have. Um, and they didn't get a chance to catch it the first night, so they wanted to monitor her again the second night. And they didn't, catch anything. So they were assuming that maybe it wasn't a seizure. And but if I was to, to continue to watch her sleeping and continue to watch her, and if I was to see anything, just to come back or call them and let them know what's going on. So I've been really like on edge because of that. Because like I said, I've never seen that in any of my other children.
How are you doing emotionally now after everything that's happened? it seems like a very traumatic situation, and I don't even know how I would feel. You've gone through so much, and not just during your labor and the birth of your baby, but also after. So how are you doing now?
Um, it's it's a struggle. I've never experienced something so horrid before. So I have my days where I'm like, I'm okay, I'm okay, and then I burst out crying. So
Mm.
it's really emotional. It's a roller coaster for me. Um, I still feel upset at times, confused, and just tired of, feeling like women that look like me are mistreated like this more than just what we've seen on social media and what we've seen on TV. We see it every day and don't realize how often it happens. And it's because, they didn't get it on tape, stuff like that. And it's not often that people would get stuff like that on tape. It's just so happened my mother was just moved to start recording. And everyone don't have someone that's moved to do that. So it's more often that we know, and it's hurtful. And I'm tired. I'm tired of us being put in situations like this, mistreated. And I just feel like there needs to be equality when it comes to healthcare for Black women.
Exactly, absolutely. So, what are some of the things that have helped you to cope after having a traumatic experience?
Yeah, I've had to depend on my faith in God to help me through emotionally and mentally with this thing. My husband, we've had to support each other like we've never had to support each other before, with our emotions and just being there for each other right now, because it was it's been weeks, but we are still very very hurt, very emotional and messed up mentally, honestly. So yeah, we've had to seek counseling, and we've had to continue, trusting God to get us through this situation. Our family has been very supportive too. Both our parents have been supportive, with helping us, with the children, and just being there for us. And we are very blessed with that. And I'm grateful to them. But it's not, it's like the hospital that did this to us. I just want them to do what's right,
Right.
make the changes that's important. And it's baffling to me that it has not been changes before me, and things set in place to make sure things like this don't happen. So, and I'm just like, this is 2025. I can't believe that people are still going through this. Black women are still going through this. Let's get it right, and they need to definitely fix the problem. And
Ex-
it's not just a, a problem with this hospital, it's a problem with all of the hospitals.
Exactly.
Mhm.
How has the viral aspect of your story, felt for you? Has it been overwhelming? Has it been helpful, or a mix of emotions for you?
It's a mix of emotions because I'm glad that the topic is up there and we're talking about it, and people are, more aware. Every other culture are more aware of what's been happening with us because it was trending, and it was another situation in Texas with a young lady that was going through a similar issue at the hospital in excruciating pain and labor, and the nurse ignored her. So just the problem of being ignored across the board is made aware, and I'm glad of that. Although yeah, I was up there, making all kinds of faces and going through my pain, it was so many people related to that because they had similar experiences. So many women related to what I was going through, so it just made it worth it. It made it worth it for me.
Can you talk a little bit about the Wells Act and what you hope will come from it, and what is it proposing for other pregnant people and families?
It's proposing policy change, and I'm so grateful to Robin Kelly, Congresswoman, that she's stepped up, and she's been working in this area, in this space with Black maternal health for 10 plus years. So she knows a lot about, the mistreatment that we've experienced. And she just, I think that was like one of the tips of the icebergs for her, that she's like, we have to push this, and this is has to be a change. So that's why we're pushing policy change when it comes to the standard. The standard has to be leveled all the way up so that we don't have to experience disparities like this.
For someone that's listening to your story or listening to this podcast episode that may have been dismissed or not believed by the medical setting, what advice do you have for them, or what do you want to say to them?
I want to say continue to, stand up for yourselves and fight for change, because it's so important that we have people that spearheading the movement of making a change for us, because that's why we have the freedom we have today, because we had people that advocated for us as a culture and made sure that we had those, freedoms to be treated better. So we have to continue that narrative. Like, we deserve to be treated better. So just stand up for yourself and have the people around you that are going to support you.
So, what message would you want the doctors, nurses, and hospital staff to take from this episode, especially when it comes to Black women and their pain and taking it seriously?
What I would say is that their job is a big part of compassion. Like, that's one of the main things that they're supposed to have in this profession, is to have compassion for people. And they have to lead with love. And if you don't have that kind of love and compassion in your heart, then this isn't the profession for you. That would be my message. To have compassion and love, and learn how to do that if it's something that you don't have already before you get into this profession.
That's good. That's good because that goes a long way. How can people practically support you and your family during this time, and especially with the advocacy work that you're doing now?
I do have an Instagram and Facebook. My Facebook is Mercedes Cherie Wells. Um, Me and my husband, we breed puppies. So you'll see the puppy, me holding a puppy on my profile picture. I also have an Instagram. So that's the same picture of me holding a Yorkie. And it's Amazing Exotic Puppies on Instagram. If you type in my name, Mercedes Wells, you'll also find me on Instagram.
All right. So on the Be Well podcast, being well is like the central theme of what we talk about. So what does being well look like for you in this particular season of your life after experiencing everything that you have?
Good question. Being well for me right now is mentally getting better, emotionally getting more stable with, you know, the the pain I've experienced. It's a it's a roller coaster for me right now. So just having my family support is helping me, and it's the wellness I need. And just, trying to balance everything at once with caring for a family and being a wife and making sure I eat well. That's all. It just comes full circle for me with being well.
All right, Mercedes. I thank you so much for telling your story on this podcast episode. So, if Mercedes' story spoke to you, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And this is Candace reminding you that your voice and your story matter more than you know. Until next time, be well, Mama.